This is a look at social media in education, leveraging social media tools for better outcomes. So a lot of us have some experiential knowledge of what social media is, but I'm going to offer a formal definition for us to work from. So we can consider social media as web-based services where users can construct a profile, specify groups of other users with whom they share a connection, and share information with those groups and/or the public. And when I refer to information, I'm talking about communication that carries facts or ideas. So it can be text, it can be videos, it can be photos, etc., etc. So looking at social media in education generally revolves around students aged 12 and above. This is because students younger than that age generally don't work as well in the environment due to restrictions by a lot of social networking sites and also sort of privacy concerns. So we're going to look at students between the ages of 12 and 29. So this is the millennial generation and the Generation Z. And we know a fair amount about these two generations at this point. They've been studied quite a bit. So we know that, for example, they have either been born into an environment where they have access to the internet or they've grown up with access to the internet. So they're digital natives. We know that they're experiential learners. We know that they are multitaskers, that they crave personalization and expect choices. And we know that they value education. So these are the qualities that sort of inform the benefits of social media and emphasize the necessity of incorporating social media into the learning environment for these groups. We also know that 93% of both groups have access to the internet or go on the internet. And we know that 73% of teens and 72% of young adults use social networking sites. And we know various other different statistics about these two different groups. So this is a collection of related data, but I'm not going to focus on them, but they're here for later reference. But what all this information and data amounts to is simply that learners and the learning environment are changing. So let's look at some of these changes. Learning in the context of social media has become highly self-motivated, autonomous, and informal. So firstly, we're moving from looking at learning as a transaction to looking at learning as a process. So rather than considering learning as being highly structured and objective and certain or fixed, we're looking at learning as being more based on observation and trial and error. It's a little bit more informal and it's iterative, so it has a process involved, as well as the fact that it's malleable and more subjective. So this leads us to the principle of thinking about learners as creating knowledge rather than receiving knowledge. So rather than thinking about students as receptacles where instructors deposit information and knowledge, we think about learners creating their own knowledge through observation again and trial and error, but also sense-making activities. Basically, we know that students learn better when they can discover concepts on their own accord rather than just simply being talked at. So learning can be better accomplished when students construct knowledge through acquiring, generating, analyzing, manipulating, and structuring information. Next, we're thinking about our intelligence as being based on our learning communities rather than simply just our individual abilities. In the networked environment, we literally have access to a world of human capital. So we're pulling on all of our resources and all of the communities and groups that surround us to pool our information and our resources and our tools and our abilities to come up with this collective intelligence. So this can be conceived of as explicit collective intelligence, which refers to projects like Wikipedia and other crowdsourced projects where people are literally collaborating and coming together to cooperatively build knowledge and intelligence. Um, or we can think about it as implicit collective intelligence, where in this age, we as humans are creating so much data that it takes multiple people to really analyze and understand the entire scope of the data. So this leads us to personal learning environments. So personal learning environments deal directly with the incorporation of social media into education. It's basically a premise based entirely on or revolving around social media in education. So what they are, basically an individual student's constructed system or framework of tools, communities, services, basically all of the resources that surround the individual that reflect his or her learning and educational goals. This is an illustrated example of someone's personal learning environment. So you can see that it can involve anything from tea stores to Twitter to colleagues' offices. So it's not just the digital realm, but the analog realm as well. Now, personal learning environments are technological and a pedagogical approach. So it heavily involves technology, but it also necessitates a particular stance in terms of pedagogy. So the technology is the social media. It's social media centric and revolves around all of these different tools. It's community based, so you're pulling on the groups of people and the communities that inform or offer knowledge to you and surround you. It's interactive, so you're interacting with those communities and different individuals to build and construct information and knowledge. Self-directed and personalized, so again it's dealing directly with the individual and his personal learning goals and aspirations and interests. And then it's dynamic and adaptive, so it's constantly changing as the student learns and grows. So to conclude this section on pedagogy, we have this nice quote to summarize. It is a time not just to teach learners how to select a topic and find information. It is a way of thoughtfully confronting the world of information and technology to experience what powerful learning really looks like, feels like, and propels us to really know and deeply understand.